So magnesium is a very, very important mineral that the majority of the population in the United States is deficient in. So again, about 70% of the United States is deficient in magnesium. This is not good. It's very, very bad. About 50% of the magnesium in our body is found in the bones, about 50% is found in soft tissue, and only about less than 1% of magnesium is found in our blood, you guys. So if a regular doctor tests you for magnesium, what the high likelihood is that they're going to test for blood magnesium, which is basically a useless test because less than 1% of our magnesium is available in the blood. Most of it is stored in bones and in tissues. There's better and then there's worse magnesium tests, just like there is for everything else. That's why it's good to be knowledgeable about this stuff. So 50% in the bones, 50% in soft tissue, less than 1% in the blood. Okay. This can be a little bit confusing, so let's just go over this first here. So take a look at the tolerable upper intake level is 350 milligrams per day, which is total shit, total crap. If you go down to the box on the left, at the bottom it says for 31 to 50-year-old people, you want to take 420 milligrams of magnesium a day. So why is the tolerable upper intake level less than the recommended daily allowance? Well, the reason for that is because of how they average this stuff together. You have to take all of this stuff with a big grain of salt. The study, the NHANES study that these numbers are based off of is an extrapolation of about 30,000 people, and then they extrapolated it to the whole country. And this is all gone over in the introduction class. If they do the averages and you're talking about age, like 30 years of age range between sexes or in your own sex, male or female, sometimes just based on the weird math, the tolerable upper intake level is less than the recommended daily allowance, which obviously means that these numbers are totally crap because that just makes zero sense anyway. So you can basically disregard the tolerable upper intake level and the RDA. I mean, they're good reference points, I guess, but the RDA, you guys remember, and again, we go over this in the introduction class, the RDA is the minimum amount that humans need to not be sick. The RDA is the minimum amount that the average male or female needs to not be sick in a certain age category, which is typically 20 to 30 year range. That's very, very general. So what I look at primarily is the toxicity, and then I look at research and literature showing what optimal magnesium levels are. So what is the magnesium level? What is the highest magnesium level that we can have where it kind of hits a point of no improving returns? We don't want the minimum we need to not be sick. We want as much as we can have to be optimally healthy. Obviously, you can have too much of everything or too little of everything. So there's a line, and it's different for different people. This is why getting advanced epigenetic and genetic testing is really, really helpful. So what I take for magnesium, you guys, I take 400 milligrams of magnesium citrate and 400 milligrams of magnesium glycinate. The stuff I take is actually magnesium biglycinate from Thorne. Both of the magnesium supplements I get are from Thorne. I put links to them here. And remember, you guys, take a look at the introduction class and take a look at what supplements I take video in this class, and there's a link in there to the Thorne practitioner program. So if you're a medical practitioner, if you're a doctor of physical therapy, medical doctor, osteopath, chiropractor, athletic trainer, whatever, you can send your license and your information into Thorne and they will give you 50% off of vitamins. It's really awesome. I just learned about this a couple months ago and I got mine. It took about 2 weeks. And yeah, it's about 50% off their vitamins. And you can, I believe you can give that, you can pass some of that discount along to patients, I believe as well. I just use it for myself, but that is an option, I believe. So take a look at that. So here's the RDA on here. That's total crap. You want to have more than that. So again, this is what I take, you guys. So I take 800 milligrams a day. I try to take 400 milligrams in the morning, 400 milligrams in the afternoon. So here's some foods that are high in magnesium. Bananas are a good common one. Spinach is good for a bunch of stuff. Meat, nuts. The oatmeal is on here. I would not recommend eating oatmeal. It's been found that almost all oats in the United States have a high level of weed killers in there, and that's not good for you. So even organic oatmeal, as far as I understand, in the United States has a lot of bad chemicals in it. So I don't recommend eating oatmeal, but almonds, steak, it has a bunch of good stuff in it, nuts, cashews, all that stuff. Here's a couple of good podcasts on magnesium, you guys. It's very, very important molecule to have in optimal levels in the body. It's involved in like 600 plus neurophysiologic reactions. A lot of other vitamins and minerals are dependent on each other, which is a really, really neat thing, and it's why it's so important to have all of these things at optimal levels inside your body, because if you have optimal levels of vitamin D and vitamin E, but you don't have optimal levels of vitamin C is involved with the metabolism of vitamin D and vitamin E. So all of these things are linked, everything in our body is linked to itself. So this is why it's so important to have a good comprehensive knowledge of all this stuff, because if you can put all these little pieces together, you can really massively improve the health of your patient. So a couple of good podcasts. Dr. Hyman is a great functional medicine doctor. That he has got a podcast on magnesium there. Peter Tiers is another great functional medicine doctor. Just briefly, guys, remember that functional medicine doctors are more or less trying to heal the body from the inside out without non-natural substances. So they do as much as they can naturally by altering diet, altering the gut microbiome, and that improves the health of the whole rest of the body. So it's more or less a very, very simple concept. Only put stuff in your body that is healthy for you, and don't put anything in your body that's not healthy. So that would be all processed foods for all people. That's guaranteed to be not healthy. But then there's individual variations as far as certain people are going to do better with certain things, certain people are not going to do better with the same thing. So individual variation is key to all this, and this is why it's really, really important to get your own levels tested so you can make objective, thoughtful decisions about what you're going to put into your body. Signs and symptoms of magnesium deficiency, they can really, with a lot of these things, you guys, it can present as just about anything. This is an important thing to keep in mind, is that just because 10 people are all equally deficient in magnesium, it's very, very likely that many of those people are going to have different signs and different symptoms, because their body is going to present in a slightly different, or sometimes a majorly different way than other people. So that's just a good thing to keep in mind. But typical signs of magnesium deficiency: anxiety, arrhythmias, constipation, fatigue, high glucose, diabetes, high blood pressure, migraines, muscle cramps, aches, twitches, nausea, numbness, tingling, blah, 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 all that good stuff. Brain fog. Magnesium deficiency really, really affects mental health. So does omega-3 deficiency, so does vitamin D deficiency, so does vitamin C deficiency, so does vitamin A deficiency. So all these things affect the brain also. So remember, you guys, if these things didn't affect the brain, they wouldn't do anything to the body long term. The brain is the base area that helps instruct the rest of the body how to function. So if our brain's not being optimally affected, nothing else in our body is going to be optimally affected long term. Signs and symptoms of toxicity. Again, you guys, this is very, very difficult to become toxic in any of these vitamins. Our body has secondary and tertiary mechanisms to break this stuff down, but there are cases of vitamin C toxicity. So usually in literature, they talk about toxicity at 1.74 to 2.61 millimolars per liter. So signs of toxicity: hypotension, nausea, vomiting, facial flushing, retention of urine, depression, mental health impairments, irregular heartbeat, heart arrhythmias, PVCs, muscle cramps, all that stuff could be signs of toxicity. Very, very uncommon. I have not met anybody that's ever had a problem with this. I would assume that toxicity problems are typically happening when people are getting IV magnesium, and it may not be titrated or dosed correctly. But if you're just taking regular supplemental magnesium, it's extremely difficult to have too much in it. So I really don't worry about toxicity with a lot of these things. So there's signs and symptoms of deficiency for magnesium, toxicity. Let's talk about what magnesium does for different parts or different structures or different tissues in the body. So magnesium is required in over 600 neurophysiologic processes. I've heard numbers over 1,000, but a lot of papers say 600, so that's what I used here. And there's references for all this stuff on the bottom of these slides, you guys. Magnesium helps regulate blood glucose levels, blood pressure, ATP production, which is super duper important. It helps mitochondria health. It helps the process of DNA to RNA to protein transcription and translation. It helps with detoxifying cells. It helps with antioxidation. It helps fortify and make our cell membranes more malleable and better functioning. It helps with nerve conduction velocity. If you don't have enough magnesium, you cannot have proper muscle function. A lot of people, I do, when my magnesium levels get low, I get little muscle fasciculations in my calf. A lot of people get muscle cramps, brain fog, all this stuff. So super duper important, and it's a very, very easy supplement to improve your levels of. The one thing about magnesium is there is 8 different kinds of magnesium, and we're going to go through all 8 of them, but let's just go through first, in general, what magnesium does to certain tissues. So for skeletal muscle, magnesium is needed to synthesize protein. It's needed for force production, the ability to contract and relax, and magnesium deficiency, again, in muscles can lead to weakness, cramps, fasciculations, loss of power, hypoxia, decreased force production, all this stuff. For heart, magnesium is one of the most common things in the emergency room that is given to people that come in with heart problems, you guys. So magnesium deficiency causes muscle problems. The heart is a muscle. If you don't have enough magnesium, you don't have the normal electrical activity, the bioelectric activity of the heart cells gets thrown off, then the heart dysfunctions, and everything goes downhill from there, obviously. So magnesium is really, really vital for cardiac health. It's helpful for the heart to have good ejection fraction, the amount of blood that it can pump out, blood volume. It's just very, very good overall for the heart. It helps reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease, which is the #1 leading killer in the United States. So that should be a major factor right there. It's very, very helpful. For me personally, you guys, I know I just feel better when I have optimal levels of all this stuff, which is how it should be, but it's really, really noticeable. If you're used to being in good shape and you're used to taking care of yourself relatively well, if you kind of go off that for a little bit, man, you can really notice a difference. So very, very helpful for lots of stuff. For nerves, magnesium, again, it's vitally important for magnesium to have proper nerve conduction velocity. Magnesium is involved in the transport of things like calcium and potassium across the cell membrane. So again, you can't have proper calcium and potassium transport through things like the sodium potassium pump and calcium transport systems. If we don't have sufficient amounts of magnesium, we can't transport and move things like calcium and potassium and phosphate across cell membranes into different areas. So again, all of this stuff is connected to each other, and we don't understand most of the ways in which it's connected. It's very, very complicated, you guys. What I always say in my classes is I'm almost positive that if we could conglomerate all of the possible medical knowledge out there in the ether, I bet we know less than 5% of the total. We know so little. We're just scratching the surface, and it does seem sometimes like we know a lot, and we do know a lot, but compared to everything that we could know, we know almost nothing. All of this stuff is interrelated with each other, and what we do know is that it's important to have all of these things in optimal concentrations. What we don't know exactly is exactly how they're all interacting. But for me, as a doctor of physical therapy, I want to know all that stuff. But the most important thing for me is to help improve the health of my patients right now, and to help my students be able to help improve the health of their patients right now. So if we know the end result, but we don't know all the tiny little mechanisms in between, that's okay as long as the end result is good. Another thing, magnesium for nerves, you guys, is very, very good for diabetic neuropathy and things like that. Okay, so for the mitochondria are extremely important parts of our body. I would say that the mitochondria could be considered the most important structure or structures in the human body to have functioning optimally all the time, because if your mitochondria aren't functioning well, nothing else in the body can possibly function well, because the mitochondria are the primary source of our primary energy unit, ATP, adenosine triphosphate. So mitochondria in oxygenated conditions, you guys remember this has to do with the citric acid cycle, the Krebs cycle, electron transport, all the same thing. So in oxygenated conditions, one mitochondria per molecule of glucose processed can produce about 36 ATPs. Without oxygen, each mitochondria produces only about 2 ATPs. So that is the difference between having oxygen and not having oxygen in cells is an 18-fold difference in the amount of energy per mitochondria that we produce. So this is very, very important to remember, and I think a lot of people don't realize, a lot of medical people don't realize this, is that skeletal muscle cells are one of the cells in our body that have multiple cell nuclei per cell. So there's multiple nuclei per cell, which means there's multiple mitochondria per cell. Some skeletal muscle cells can have upwards of 300 nuclei per cell. So one muscle cell can have up to 300 mitochondria. That means 300 times 36 with oxygen, or 300 times 2 without oxygen. So it would be, for one muscle cell, if there was 300 ATPs without oxygen, they would be producing 600 ATPs without oxygen, and with oxygen it would be 18 times 600. So it would be a lot more than 600. So it's very, very important to have healthy functioning mitochondria. One of the things they need is oxygen. Another thing that they need is sufficient magnesium, and they need vitamin D and vitamin E and vitamin A and all this stuff. But oxygen is a base necessity for mitochondria, and magnesium helps transport oxygen and other, not directly, but it's involved with red blood cells and all this stuff. Without proper magnesium, we have muscle hypoxia, we don't have healthy mitochondria, we don't have enough energy that's being produced in our cells, and our cells run out of energy. So when the cells run out of energy, they have to make tough decisions on what they're going to do with the remaining energy that they have. This is the underlying driving factor behind most autoimmune diseases and cancer. Human beings, you guys, we develop, especially adults, we develop cancer cells frequently, all the time. The reason that we don't actually develop cancer is because our body has defensive mechanisms to gobble up those cancerous cells before they get out of control. If we can gobble them up faster than they can be produced, we can get rid of it. That's a sign of a healthy body. What happens when we go into energy deficiency, which about 90% of the US population is living with, if we don't have enough mitochondrial ATP production and we run out of our autonomic well, I think about it, you guys, as like a water well. Everybody's got a little well inside of our body, and that's our autonomic reserve energy power. That's our ATP well. If that well runs dry, our body starts to dysfunction because it doesn't have enough energy to do everything properly. So mitochondria are very, very important with that. That's why I really, really like treatments like dry needling, which I teach. It's a great adjunct to nutrition and diet and wellness and stuff like that, because they're all approaching the same problem from slightly different avenues. So we're approaching, how can we make the cells the most homeostatic as we can, give the mitochondria the most energy that we can, so we can help our cells do the things that they know how to do already. This is an important thing to just keep in the back of your mind, you guys. Our cells in our body are smart. They know what they should be doing. It's not a problem of they forget what to do. It's that our cells become inhibited from functioning properly because of things like deficiencies in magnesium, deficiencies in oxygen, deficiencies in other vitamins and minerals. We need to remove the inhibition that's stopping our access, our innate access to our superpowers. We have innate autonomic superpowers that our cells already have. The problem is they get inhibited from utilizing them from a bunch of different factors. It could be mental stress, physical stress, all sorts of stuff. So magnesium, obviously very, very important for the bones, because it is highly involved in calcium transport. So it really, really improves function of osteoblasts, osteoclasts, the things that make bones and that break bone cells down. It's very, very important to have sufficient magnesium levels and vitamin D levels, because they're both involved in bone health and a bazillion other things. That's why it's important to have high optimal levels of all of these things, not just one or two of them. And if you don't have optimal levels of just one of them, none of the other ones are going to work properly. I think about this kind of the same way you guys is like exercise. I've been in good shape more or less my whole life. I exercise all the time. It is absolutely stunning how fast your muscles start to deteriorate if you just stop doing stuff. It's absolutely amazing. Like, it takes years to build this stuff up and it starts to go away in weeks. So I think about it kind of the same way. It's important to have all of these vitamins and minerals in optimal quantities in our body, but if just one of them is not there, none of the other ones are going to work as well as they could be working. So very, very important for bone. Again, our body has breakdown mechanisms for all this stuff. So magnesium comes in, it gets broken down in the stomach, absorbed in the kidneys, and then it gets processed in the liver and excreted through urine and other ways. We're going to go through the 8 different types of magnesium here, you guys. So there's some more information on the magnesium citrate, magnesium glycinate, orotate, and sulfate. They're underlined. If you click on the name of those ones, I've included research links there. There was a little bit more research on some of those ones. So just FYI, you don't need to look at it, but just FYI. So the first two, you guys, are the 2 magnesiums that I take. So I take magnesium citrate and magnesium glycinate. The reason that I take those 2 ones is that they're highly absorbable. The amount that we put into our mouth, a good percentage of it becomes bioavailable, which is important, right? All the magnesiums are relatively cheap. These ones are cheap, and Thorne has both of these ones. I really like the Thorne company. So the magnesium citrate and the magnesium glycinate are the 2 that I take. They're both from Thorne. Again, remember, go back and look on the first page of the magnesium slide. I have the links for them. So magnesium citrate is bound with citric acid. It's one of the most viable bioavailable forms of magnesium, and it's really, really easily absorbed in the intestines. There's been some studies looking at magnesium citrate and migraine frequency, and in one study, migraine frequency was reduced by 40% in people that took magnesium. So again, you guys, a ton of these organ problems that the vast majority of mainstream medical practitioners will come in and say, well, man, your kidney's dysfunctioning. Let's give you a medicine that's going to focus on your kidney. And that is such a dumb way to do things, because anybody with an 8th grade understanding of biology knows that things in the body typically don't act directly on themselves. So the kidney doesn't make the kidney sick. Something else is making the kidney sick. The liver doesn't make the liver sick. If you drink a shit ton of alcohol, that screws up your liver. If you don't drink alcohol, your liver, in general, if you don't put things in your body that your liver needs to work extra hard to break down, your liver is going to be fine. The liver doesn't make itself dysfunction. Other things are making the liver dysfunction. However, if you go into a regular doctor with a liver problem, they are only going to look at your liver. It's such a backwards way to look at medicine, and this is why the health of the United States in 2024 is worse than it's been in the history of our country. The average lifespan is decreasing for the first time in about 100 years. 79% of the U.S. population is either overweight, obese, or morbidly obese, including children. About 65% of the U.S. population is taking at least one prescription drug, has at least one chronic or autoimmune disease, including children. It's absolutely ridiculous. And the reason is because our medical establishment has decided to ignore all of the very basic things that we need for our body because they're cheap or free and extremely effective and safe. So those are words that strike the heart, strike fear into the hearts of the twisted megalomaniacs that are working for places like the NIH and the CDC and all this stuff. If people actually cared about the health of the United States, all of these vitamins and minerals would be in the comprehensive blood panel per year. Go back and take a peek at the intro class. I go over specifically what is in the comprehensive blood panel and what is in a good blood test, but zero of any of the things that we're going to talk about in this class are in a comprehensive blood panel, meaning that unless you know that people are deficient in these things and you go to a regular doctor, they don't know any of this stuff and they're not going to test for it. So you really do have to argue with doctors sometimes to even get them to test for simple things like vitamin D, because they've been so brainwashed by the system that you do the comprehensive blood panel, you give people pills, this is how you make people healthy. However, it doesn't make anybody healthy. It's made everybody sick. Highlights of magnesium citrate, it's mainly used to raise magnesium levels and treat constipation. So there's some other types of magnesium that don't necessarily raise your overall magnesium levels but can be good for other things. Magnesium citrate is one that's used for raising all magnesium levels because it's readily absorbed and bioavailable. So that's one I use, magnesium citrate. Magnesium glycinate, I really like the taste of this stuff. So again, the one I take is magnesium biglycinate from Thorne. That one actually tastes good. I really like the taste of that one. It's a little sour. It kind of tastes like sour apple stuff to me, more or less. But magnesium biglycinate is magnesium formed with the amino acid glycine. Another good reason to take magnesium biglycinate is amino acids are good in general. So this form of magnesium, another easily absorbed one, just like magnesium citrate. This one tends to cause less bowel problems with people. So remember, you guys, magnesium is one of the things that will help improve bowel movement and motility of our intestines and stuff like that. So some people will have bowel issues when they start taking magnesium. Again, I don't think that's a bad thing. Obviously, you don't want it chronically, but if it just happens a couple of times, whatever. If bowel problems or going to the bathroom a little bit more is the worst side effect, we're doing good, because ibuprofen has death listed 3 times in the full list of side effects. So magnesium, death is not listed as a side effect. Magnesium has saved a ton of people from death. Typical over-the-counter drugs have side effects like death because we don't understand how the human body works. If we did understand how the human body works, we can make medicine without any side effects based on each individual. But we have no understanding, or we're starting to get the understanding of how to do that. It's not anywhere close to being in mainstream medicine now. There are some really, really cool researchers out there, you guys. One of the guys, his name is Michael Levine. He's a biologist and a neuroscientist. He's extremely smart, and he's looking at some really, really cool things with bioelectricity and how you can change the cell's function just by changing its electrical environment and not changing anything else. So there's lots of really neat stuff to think about with that. But again, we know for sure that if you put the proper stuff in your body that it needs, we function better and we're in better health. So glycine is also used as a standalone supplement, you guys, because it's an amino acid. It's very, very important for our body. By taking magnesium glycinate, you're getting magnesium and glycine. And by taking magnesium citrate, you're getting magnesium and citric acid. So it's magnesium combined with other stuff. Magnesium glycinate, easily absorbed. I actually do notice this one, you guys, and I don't know if it's the placebo effect or whatever, but again, if something's a placebo effect, I really don't give 2 shits, because it still works. Like, the placebo effect is because it has effects. So I don't know if it's neurophysiologic or it's mental for me, but I definitely do feel calmer when I take specifically magnesium glycinate. So this one's in a powder. The one I take, the magnesium citrate, is in a pill. But I swear, when I take magnesium glycinate, I take it every morning. I put some in my fruit drink. I swear that it calms me down. And again, I don't know if it's because I just think about this stuff all the time, but that is one of the reported consistent effects of magnesium glycinate. So that may be something that everybody could use. I think the vast majority of people are way too stressed out all the time. So again, this will help. All of this stuff helps with both mental and physical health, you guys. That's what's so cool about this. And you can't treat just mental health or just physical health, because they're intricately interlinked with each other. They're intricately interconnected. So this will help with all aspects of mental and physical health, and it'll just help improve your life in general. Okay, so magnesium oxide, the other 6 types of magnesium, you guys, I don't take, but that does not mean that you shouldn't take them. I'm just telling you what I take, and I'm giving you the information about all this other stuff. Magnesium oxide is a salt. Remember, Epsom salt baths have magnesium in them, right? Magnesium oxide, obviously magnesium and oxygen. This is the most common type of magnesium found in supplements because it's the cheapest one to make. Unfortunately, it's not nearly as well absorbed as the magnesium citrate and the magnesium glycinate. So I don't take the magnesium oxide because you don't convert as much of it into the bioactive form as you do with, say, magnesium glycinate and magnesium citrate. But people use this one for indigestion, heartburn, and constipation. Magnesium is a big one for constipation. This one doesn't necessarily raise your overall magnesium levels, again, because it's not absorbed super well, but that doesn't mean that it's not good for other things. Magnesium chloride, magnesium, another magnesium salt, includes chlorine. Obviously people think chlorine, I don't want to take it, but sodium chloride, it's in a lot of stuff. Just drinking straight up chlorine, obviously not good for you, but salt's okay for you. So this one's easily absorbed in the digestive tract. It's relatively good to raise overall magnesium levels. And again, magnesium can be a very, very driving factor behind things like fibromyalgia, chronic pain, muscle spasms, and all this stuff. So very, very helpful for that. Highlights for magnesium chloride, it's easily absorbed topically, so this is one that people will use in creams and stuff like that. Again, it can help relieve pain. I know lots of patients of mine that do well with magnesium creams on their muscles and things like that. It's best if you can just improve your overall magnesium levels so you don't have to use creams and stuff like that, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with it at all. The most negative side effect of any of these supplements and vitamins and even the peptide therapy and the peptide therapy class, you guys, the worst side effect for any of this stuff is more or less upset stomach. There's no death level dose for any of this stuff in any like consistent literature anywhere. Obviously, if you drink enough water, you can die too. So you can die from anything, but as far as safety stuff goes, there's really no major serious adverse safety things with any of this stuff because it's natural. That's why it's so hard to kill yourself with natural things, because our body has been around, or human beings have been around for hundreds of thousands of years, and we've had the evolutionary practice to learn how to respond to natural things. What we run into huge problems with is when we start putting things that have only been introduced to human beings in the last 50 or 100 years, which is the vast majority of food that the vast majority of people eat in the United States. So remember, go back and take the introduction class. It's a really cheap one if you guys haven't taken it yet. It's $69.99. It's a 5 CEU course, and I go over all of the intro to what the standard blood panel is, what's tested for in the standard blood panel, what companies you should use to get a standard blood panel. Again, standard blood panel, they test for 14 things. The company that I recommend tests for 135 things. So I don't know about you guys, but I would rather have tested for 135 things than 14 things, because you're just going to know more about yourself that way. Magnesium orotate. This is a combination of magnesium and orotic acid. This one is easily absorbed because it's not really broken down in the stomach as much as other ones. This one, because of that, can be used to more effectively treat heartburn, indigestion, stomach issues, and stuff like that. All magnesiums are helpful for the heart. This one is a little bit more expensive than other ones, so that may be a reason that a lot of people don't take it. Again, I don't take these ones. I take magnesium citrate and magnesium glycinate, but I'm not saying that that is the correct way to do it. Maybe I should take these other ones, but this is just what I've done so far. Magnesium sulfate. This one is magnesium, sulfur, and oxygen. So sulfur and oxygen can be helpful for us too. This one is commonly used as Epsom salt. So again, we can absorb magnesium through our skin, just like we can absorb some other stuff through our skin, like vitamin D and sunlight. This can be a good one for like muscle cramps and stuff like that. I know a lot of people like Epsom salt baths. I find them to be very relaxing. Again, that may be another way to have the calming effect of magnesium. We know that some magnesium specifically does seem to have mentally calming effects. People do seem to be relaxed with Epsom salt baths. I'm sure it's a combination of waters calming for most people, plus the magnesium. So all this stuff, great stuff to try. Last two types of magnesium. So magnesium taurate, that's with another amino acid, taurine. This has good absorption. Sometimes it's used for patients to improve their insulin sensitivity. So this is a big one, you guys. A huge percentage of the United States population is pre-diabetic or diabetic. I mean, 79% of the US population is overweight, obese, or morbidly obese. So most of those people are either going to be diabetic or pre-diabetic. That's 80% of the United States population. So magnesium is absolutely vital, along with vitamin D and other vitamins, to induce proper insulin sensitivity. So if we become insulin resistant, that's when we stop breaking down glucose properly and we start running into all sorts of problems. So again, having sufficient levels of all of these vitamins and minerals is just going to give your body and give you the best chance to be optimally mentally and physically healthy. Oh, one thing about the magnesium taurate is taurine is used to give people energy sometimes with some energy drinks. That you may get a little extra energy with magnesium taurate. Again, it's not one that I take, but that could be a potential. And then the last one, you guys, magnesium malate. So this one is magnesium and malic acid. This one is naturally occurring, just like some of the other magnesium forms in certain foods. This one in fruit and wine. It has a sour taste. I actually like the way this one tastes. It's a really nice tasting one, to me at least. Magnesium malate, excellent absorption. It's good at raising magnesium levels in red blood cells. So as far as I understand, all cells in our body have magnesium receptors, you guys. That should tell you something about it. So very, very important. Magnesium, all types of magnesium will help with heart health. Some are more specific for it than other. Chronic fatigue syndrome, magnesium is very helpful with. So this is why it's so important to get genetically and epigenetically tested from a place that has doctors that know what they're doing and that can give you recommendations behind it, you guys, because if you're deficient in magnesium and you're having certain signs and symptoms, certain individuals are going to do better with certain types of magnesium, and there's just no way to standardize that across the board, because you have to look at each person as an individual and what they have specifically going on. You can't just say that all people with muscle cramps are going to do the best with magnesium citrate, or all people with constipation are going to do the best with magnesium orotate. There's no way to say that. We can make generalizations, but as far as individual action goes, why would you want to guess on generalizations for your own health and the health of your patients when we have the ability to cheaply and easily test for this stuff and fix it? It's frustrating, you guys, because none of this stuff is taught in medical schools. None of this stuff is part of mainstream medicine. It's super easy. It's super effective. You just have to know the information. It's exciting and it's frustrating at the same time, because there's so much hope, there's so much positive things that we can do for people that are just not being done right now, because again, the pharmaceutical companies can't make money off of this stuff because they can't patent it, because it's natural substances. The pharmaceutical companies can't patent natural substances. They have to change it a certain amount. Magnesium testing, and again, this is included in the list at the end of the what supplements I take video and the document, you guys, but Nutrival is one. Rupa Health, that's a good company. Function Health is Dr. Hyman's company. I really like Function Health. They do all sorts of good testing. They just got a bunch of private funding to do some more cool stuff. Inside Tracker, that's another good blood testing company. I believe Peter T is on the board of that one. I think David Sinclair is on the board of that one from Harvard. Two guys that I really, really like. And so that's another good one. They also have a podcast. The Inside Tracker has a podcast too, so that's another good one. For the magnesium testing, you guys, this is I think I mentioned this before, but it's just good to reiterate. The comprehensive blood panel doesn't test for magnesium, doesn't test for any vitamins and minerals. And if you're going to get a magnesium test, most doctors are going to test your blood and only 1% of the magnesium is in your blood. So it's really, really unfortunate that you just can't trust doctors to be doing the best thing for you. But you can basically guarantee that no doctor in the mainstream medical practice is going to be doing the correct thing for you, because the way the system is set up is they don't care about your health. You cannot do a good job as a doctor seeing a patient for 2 minutes. Period. End of story. It's impossible. So the way that most mainstream medicine is done is you go in, you maybe see a doctor for about 2 minutes, then you see a PA or something like that. They ask you your symptoms, they match what you say to a list in a book, whatever that list says is what pill they give you, and that's the end of the story, and then you go back and see them the next year. That's the way it works. It's really crappy. But so again, knowing this stuff on our own, knowing this for ourselves, I don't care whether you're a medical practitioner or just a general person with no medical license, this stuff is absolutely necessary for everybody to know if you want to have the best health for yourself, your patients, your kids, and all that stuff.